But how you can affect your dreams, because we've gotten into the science, I believe they're relevant. Let's take this first stage. You go from waking to dreaming, right? Whatever time that is, not every time, not for everyone, but just the fact that it's possible. That's something called sleep entry. Okay, with those surface electrodes on our scalp, the electricity blends. It's like a liminal state. Like I used to be a scuba diver. When you go from a freshwater river to an ocean, it's not like there's a crisp line. There's a blurry zone. Similarly, when we go from waking to dreaming, there's about a 10-15 minute period called sleep entry. Salvador Dali and some current tech companies in San Francisco, they believe that during that period, you kind of sort of have access to that divergent creative ideation of dreaming, and that they can extract ideas from there. So much so, Thomas Edison with the light bulb would fall asleep in a chair, and when he'd fall asleep and he'd startle himself awake, he'd write down what he was thinking. That was a scene in Inception, right? So I'll bring the science in, but that's there. Christopher Nolan's talking about that. Salvador Dali wrote a book about that. His stuff is surreal, and so that period is the first entry into dream life that you can still hold on to. And what we're finding is that people have more interesting ideas. They have more divergent thinking and creative ideas at that window. But to be clear, your trouble at work, you got to create a project. Is that going to guarantee it? No, but it's a habit of respecting that transition liminal zone as a portal to a state your brain is not in when you're awake or not in when you're dreaming, right? So that's one thing that people can do to cultivate. In that same area, some people feel and report, questionnaires and surveys, not measurements, that what you think about at that time will be more likely to populate your dream life, whether you remember or not, and may lead to the aha moment the next day. Let me give you a specific example. I'm a cancer surgeon. Cancer eats up blood vessels and tissue in different ways. On challenging cases, I'll flip the images through as the last thing I go to bed thinking about. And somebody asked me this in London. They said, well, did you dream of surgery? I said, no, I've never dreamt of surgery, but I have a lot of dreams of scuba diving, navigating mazes, going through forests.
Wow.
And so what I concluded, is my opinion, is that it's a three-dimensional space. And I know I'm working on a three-dimensional creative project, and that my dream life is somehow rehearsing that, practicing that, providing me with that maneuver in a complex surgery. When I say, man, that was, where did that come from? Sometimes I think it wasn't like, in this scenario 6, I will come up with solution 4.
Yeah.
No, like things arise during our waking life. And I think the dreaming brain builds that. So sleep entry for waking up intentionally and writing down your thoughts and journaling at that moment. Journaling in general about what you want to dream about. For me, looking at pictures about a surgery, those are specific things as you fall asleep that somebody can try. My opinion about it is that one, dreams should not be neglected. Okay. Nightmares, if they pop up and they arrive out of the blue, they shouldn't be neglected. I think dreams that are flashbacks after PTSD obviously should not be neglected. So there's some dreams that have an easier rule to follow, if you will. But then what about those other dreams that you're bringing up, right? Like intensely emotional, that linger with you during the day. And you're wondering like, wait a second, is that an insight to myself that I don't even have yet about myself? Should I discuss this with a therapist? Should I discuss this with my lover? And I think the way I've started to reflect on my dreams a bit more is that when they are hyper emotional, it's an invitation to look at your life differently. All right. I feel like I'm doing well. I'm high achieving. I'm doing this. I'm not, you feel like, no, it's fine. I'm dealing with a broken relationship. But if you start having nightmares, or if you have emotional dreams that are filled with fright or regret, I'm not saying that there's never an automatic link, right? Other than showing up naked at a podium or alarm not going off. But the one that's powerful, haunts you, doesn't make sense. That's an invitation to think about something. And back to our original conversation, to me, that's a life well examined, is paying attention to the emotional, powerful dreams that you have that linger with you. The dream is symbolic, to get to your answer in the most specific way. The dream is a metaphor. The dream is symbolism. Because from the dreaming brain, and you've hypervisual, hyper emotional, it's not going to spell it out for you. It's going to be metaphorical. It's going to be symbolic. Specific example: Vietnam veterans who had PTSD got better. They start going through divorce. They're struggling. They're not dreaming of divorce. They're dreaming of war again. So the experiences you're having, they're an invitation to reflect. The meaning is metaphorical and symbolic, all based on how the dreaming brain is built. And it's personal. It's hard to say a bridge or a light bulb in your life at this moment is going to be the same meaning for me at this moment in my life, or my life 10 years from now, not just former versions of myself. So I'm not here to refute anything, but it's a very personal process. Your brain made it. It's a emotion to a hyper emotional state. It could mean nothing. It could mean something, but what I'm here to say is take a look at it.
Yeah.
The question you just asked is something special about, are we meaning makers? And now this is going to take me a little time to open up on this.
Please.
But what's interesting, and again, I don't have all the answers, this is conversation, is that in the dreaming brain, even though the logic and reason areas are dampened, specifically the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, it's right behind our sort of horns in the prefrontal cortex that pushed our brains forward. There's another area called the medial prefrontal cortex that's preserved. It stays throbbing. It's actually liberated a little bit. And you know what that one does? It does something we only figured out when we accidentally injure it or somebody has a stroke in that area. It stitches the story of our life together. Powerful, right?
Yeah.
And so what's happening? This is cool. What's happening is your emotions and your vision centers and your movement centers are just firing up stuff, linked directly, indirectly to the stuff you fed it during the day, the stuff your life fed it, right? Your life, your memory, plus the imagination. And then the medial prefrontal cortex is there putting a story to it. Dreams often, not always, are stories. They have a narrative component. They're emotional, they're visual, they have a narrative component. Our brains want to make a cohesive story. I know that for a lot of reasons. And the dreaming brain is something that also preserves that. And some have even extended that to like, well, maybe that's why we can, we get movies that have jumps of ideas. People go from one place to the other. Like our dreaming, the way we dream prepares us for the way we appreciate art, right? So we can let that go this way. On this side, some of my patients with certain complications and certain tumors and different things, they'll wake up and they won't feel certain parts of their body. And they'll develop something called neglect, or they'll develop something what is called confabulation. It's a fancy word for lying. When the body signals are disconjugate, they don't make sense, the brain, the mind, will make up a story to make it all fit. And some patients have actually tried to throw a leg they don't feel off the bed, and they say, oh, that was a stranger. And so you see things with the injured brain and the healing brain that there's a drive within us. Sometimes we'll even lie to ourselves and others to create a consistent or a story that makes sense to ourselves, meaning. And I think if you look at that at the brain level and you look at that at the dreaming level, what I try to tell people in my first book is look at that at the life level. Like our maturation isn't done just with adolescence, right? The work has to continue to cultivate your brain and your mind and your life. So when you get through a struggle and you get through it, that prepares you for the next one. If you're in a struggle now that's just overwhelming, like something difficult, so hard, don't worry because you're cultivating that stress for the next one. And I think all of those pieces, not measurements, but my opinion, that we are meaning makers. We are storytellers in the moments of our lives, in our dreaming brain, in our life in general. And the area where stories and emotions are the wildest, with our dreams. And that's why I think why we dream is something bigger than just threat rehearsal. I think it's something powerful. When we wake up and that clarity is because our subconscious has had its run.